Welcome to a brand new episode of Tech Your Business. I'm your host, Peter Banigo, and today I'm joined by Nick Garofalo. Nick is a CFP candidate. He's the founder of Openhanded Wealth. And what Nick does, he helps Christian individuals align their personal finances with their faith values using technology. So we're talking about how he runs his business, how just general things around that topic that I'm sure would be of value to you. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Oh, thanks for having me, Peter. It's a pleasure.
All right, so I think we've talked a lot before the show, so now we're recording.
We did. We're friends now, right?
Before we go into right, he knows I'm in Port Harcourt, he's in Georgia. We've talked a lot, really. So before we go into the show, can you share a bit about your journey up to this point, founding Open-Handed Wealth, and what makes your approach different from the traditional financial advisors?
Oh yeah, I would love to share the story. It's a family story, so I hope you don't mind a family story. We all have families; we all come from them, and that's really the source of my start in getting into finance. So I worked for my dad right out of high school because it was a better job than the alternative, and because I wanted to help him. I wanted to help him in the family business. I thought it could be cool. A couple other family members were working there at the time, so when I was old enough, I was kind of excited to get to go and help him. Being in a small business, being in a family business environment, there are pros and cons to everything in life, right? And I learned a lot. It was a very, I don't know, just a really good experience, but it was a hard experience working with family in some ways too. And I think anybody who's worked in family business knows what I'm talking about, right? Like you're sitting at the dinner table, the phone rings, somebody's going to grab it, to answer the customer call, or, you're sitting again at the dinner table and you're talking about what you just did all day long, or the weekend comes and, there's just never really a break or separation from work and being at home. And, so anyway, through high school, through college, after college, I was still working for him. I was doing the financial planning and analytics. I was doing reporting, and we did, I kind of helped to put together an HR infrastructure and just kind of get the business from like mom and pop, small shop to a business that's viable and sustainable. And so me and my brother really helped. We brought in advisors because we didn't know what we were doing, but we worked with some great people to help build the company to the point that it was, a bit stronger and more viable. And my dad did a great job, bringing in a couple of really smart advisors in the process. And one of them was a financial planner who actually approached me. He's like, "Hey, has your dad ever considered a 401k?" And if you don't know what a 401k is, or like me, if you just think that it's like a dollar amount, it refers to a section of the Internal Revenue Code, but it's basically just a savings account where you can put money and not pay taxes on the income yet. So you put money in there through your paychecks, and then you pay tax when you pull the money out in retirement. It's a really great way to defer taxes into the future when hopefully you won't be paying quite as high of a tax bracket. But for a business owner, it can be a really advantageous way in high income years to push income into future years when you'll be paying lower in taxes. Well, long story short, we put a plan together. It was really it was a really cool plan. It accomplished a lot of neat things. It saved on taxes. It helped the employees and helped my dad. And I kind of planted a seed in me of seeing a way that a good financial plan and good forward thinking, having the right tool for the job can serve a business owner. Because let's be honest, business owners running a business, managing it, especially a family business, is exhausting. It feels like you're constantly chasing loose ends, and that everything is up to you, and that nobody's in your corner trying to help you think through, what's best for you and your family and your business. And so that's what I love to do, is come in as that advisor, as that person to be a listening ear and be a sounding board, having been through the trenches of a family business, and then we sold it. And so I was in corporate environment for about another 7 years doing, more of a corporate finance role, and having a sounding board to talk through these things, to, think creatively about, solving the financial problems of, cash management, taxes, investing. It's a really, really fun place to be for me. And it puts me with people that I love to be with,
Mm. Okay, so I think when you were giving this answer, there's something you mentioned while we were describing the 401k, that it's a way for entrepreneurs to push extra income from those high income years into the future.
Yep.
And in the last few years of business, I think that's one thing that really saved me, because I mentioned earlier that there was a point where I had to stop everything I was doing. And yes, what I kept from then kept me for like 2, 3 years without having to work or anything. But I've noticed that for a lot of entrepreneurs, when they get to that place where they are making a lot of money, I think I'm digressing a bit, but I want to
Sure.
ask this question. When
Yeah.
they get to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
place where they are making a lot of money, yeah, they tend to they call it this lifestyle inflation. They increase their lifestyle, they increase their expenses, they take their daily lives to a point which is really um, unsustainable in the long term a lot of the time.
Right.
So I think yeah, before we continue, what advice would you give, especially when someone maybe starts a business and starts making a lot of money? What do you say they should do?
Oh man. Well, a couple things. I mean, first, recognize that you're being blessed for the success with success for your hard work. So congratulations. I mean, if you're at the point in your business where you're starting to make a profit, and a good profit, maybe more profit than you dreamed you would, maybe more than you've ever imagined making, um, you deserve a high five and a pat on the back, because you've worked really, really hard to get there. So what I would encourage you is, um, don't rob your future self of the opportunity of enjoying those hard-earned blessings by neglecting to make a plan with it today. Okay, and the plan, when I say that, the tool I'm going to pull out of my belt is a cash flow plan, a zero-based cash flow plan. That's kind of my jargon for avoiding the word budget. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. If you're a family and you've got a couple kids, and your income needs are, let's say, $100,000 a year, and your business is producing 200 or 300 or 500, or add zeros to those. Let's say you need 500 a year to live on, but your business is producing 2 million. That's great. That's fantastic. Don't let lifestyle inflation rob you of the hard-earned savings that you now have the opportunity to accumulate. Okay. And also recognize that, perhaps God has blessed you for such a time as this to be a blessing to others. Okay. But you can't be a blessing to others if A, you're spending everything you make, and B, you're not planning for the future. And so having a good cash flow plan in place, that where every dollar that comes into your hands has a job within the business of your household, is just a really great way to answer tomorrow's questions today, right? So you're not staring at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter or year at a big pile of money that you never allocated to anything. Instead, every dollar that came in had a job. It's already invested or allocated or saved or spent according to the plan. And so you don't have, some end of year temptation to go and buy something you don't need, or spend money in a way that you would regret later because, I wish I had been more disciplined. Well, let's do it. You can be disciplined now, so you don't have to regret it later, right? And it's not a painful process of, it doesn't have to be about, what's the word I'm reaching for? Say no to yourself to the point of, of pain or discomfort. It's not an exercise in just depriving yourself. It's investing in your future, and it's being a careful steward with what you've been entrusted with, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your business, for the sake of your future. The way I kind of explain the concept, Peter, of retirement to people who struggle, either because I've talked to two different camps of people. There are people who struggle with the idea of saving for retirement because, when you read the Bible, Jesus seems to have a problem with the idea of just accumulating a lot of wealth. And I actually agree that it can be very perilous to the soul to accumulate a lot of wealth, which I know is a funny thing for a financial person to say. So I think we need to be incredibly careful to not over accumulate. But at the same time, there are a lot of stories and a lot of principles in Scripture where we see the saver praised for his or her wisdom. The ant, right, who stores up food in time of harvest for the winter. Joseph, who had the dream of the famine coming on Egypt and stored up in 7 abundant years for the 7 years of famine and hardship. And so we can look at the broad data available to us and say, okay, I was born this year. I live in this place. I have these particular health predispositions. My estimated lifespan is probably somewhere between 70 and 100 years. Okay. I'm probably not going to work until I die. And because of that, there will be years of need that are not, uh, you know, that I will not be earning an income, right? There will probably be, a span of a year, excuse me, a span of a decade or 2 or 3 decades at the end of my life when I will need to live and I will have legitimate expenses, healthcare expenses, etc., that I won't be able to pay for with incoming cash flow from my labor. So I need to save now when I have strength to work and have more than I need, so that someday I'm not a burden on those, uh, you know, providing for me and taking care of me. So, yeah, there
Amazing.
you go.
Yeah. Amazing. So I think that answer, I think it'll help a lot of people. That's why I asked it, because most people listening to this show are business owners, and a lot of times when the money comes in that fast, so fast, and unlike what they've been used to, they get confused about what to do with it.
Sure.
So now so now your target market is Christians. So, what unique financial perspective do you bring to this community, and why did you choose this community?
Yeah. Well, Peter, first I'll say I'm glad to work with anyone. Anyone that comes to me seeking advice or service or help with their business or with their personal finances, it would be my pleasure to work with them. The reason that I specifically incorporate, pretty explicitly Christian language into my marketing and my resources is because everything that I do and all the ways that I think about money are first rooted in scripture and in my faith. And so it would be a terrible misalignment for someone to come to me thinking that I'm going to, earn them the highest return on their investments, or, help them avoid taxes, dishonestly or something, and then be surprised to find out that that's just not how I work. So I like to put that out front first and foremost, so people know what they're getting. But to anyone who wants, a careful approach to their finances, or a responsible and a diligent approach to their wealth, I would love to work with them and see if I could serve them. But some specifically Christian things that I do that may be different from a typical advisor. First, like I said, I recognize everything we have has been given to us for stewardship for a short period of time. We're only on this earth for so long, and we've been given resources, time, and relationships, and money, and talents, and skills, and even our attention is a resource that we've been entrusted to steward well for the flourishment of humanity, for the proliferation of the good news of the gospel and the image of God to be manifest in the world, but also just as a way to love your neighbor and to be, to bring God glory by just living life to the full. And so, the way that I approach managing or helping a client, think through managing their money starts first there. But it doesn't end there. I think a lot of advisors start there and end there. And so I wanted to go further. And so I started pursuing a while ago biblically responsible investing. Now, in the investing world, it's technically a subcategory of ESG or SRI type investing, which is like, it's kind of trying to, typically when you look at so hold on, let me zoom out for a second here. I like to open first with this question just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. So do you know what you own in your portfolio, in your investments? Do you know what companies you actually own? And if you're like 99% of people, maybe you know a couple companies, but you probably don't. I didn't. Okay, I'm a financial advisor. I really didn't. I was like, well, I can tell you the ETF tickers, that I have invested in, but no, I don't really have a clue what companies they're in. And I started to uncover this terrible misalignment, even in my own financial life, of realizing I hold very tightly to the values that I believe are the best for human flourishing, as outlined in the Bible. But at the same time, I'm actually pouring my own money in investments into companies that are actively working, to make money in ways that I don't align with. And that was a real cognitive dissonant moment for me when I realized that. Someone asked me the same question: "Do you know what you own?" And then followed up with this question: Nick, is there any value to which you hold so tightly that you'd be unwilling to compromise on that value in the name of making a profit? Okay, well, yeah, sure. There's lots of values, right? That's why I don't, I'm not a drug dealer to make my living. Like, there's lots of values that I hold to that I would not compromise on. And he said, well, do you have any idea if your investment portfolio is aligned with those values? Or do you own companies that are doing things to make money that are out of alignment with your values? And I just was like, dude, I have no idea, man. Like, and how on earth would I find out? And he said, well, let me show you. And so we started this process of discovery. And he pulled up this website and he typed in one of the tickers of my, my portfolio. It's one of the broad ones you've heard of, right? Like VOO or, the Schwab broad market funds or one of those. And he said, well, look, in this fund, there's, 1,000, 1,500 companies, 500 companies in this fund. And look at some of these. It has this company in it. These are big companies you've heard of, right? Johnson & Johnson, Amazon, Google, Pfizer, Novartis. Like, look at what these companies are doing, and you can click into them and see, like, oh, well, this one makes abortion drugs. This one sells those abortion drugs. This one hosts this online platform that's known for sexual exploitation and even for, like, what was it, CSAT, child material? I'm trying to avoid using any terms here, but like, yeah, like known for exploitative content that's either illegal or certainly unethical. And this company is profiting on the hosting fees of sustaining this platform. And Peter, my jaw just hit the floor, man. I was like, I don't even know what to do with this information. Like, what am I? How could I possibly, like? What do I do now? And so he said, well, here's the good news, Nick. There are a variety of companies like the one that he worked for that specialize in curating investment options, investment vehicles or investment funds that monitor these companies, that pull in loads of data, big data, and then assign a score to these companies to know whether or not to filter them in or out of their funds. And there's the variety of companies kind of all do this a different way. And so you can kind of pick your flavor of ice cream, so to speak, in which one you want to invest in. But what's really cool is you don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to become an expert on, all of the filtering or the ethical evaluations of the company. No, you don't have to do any of that because these companies do it, and they do it for a pretty nominal fee, all things considered. And so all you have to do is just make some changes in your portfolio, and suddenly you now get to participate in pulling money back from companies that are actively working against your Christian values and pouring capital into companies that are doing really cool things in the world. There's a couple of fun stories and examples of this. Like, there's one in particular, this company, they're a utility company, and they're working to build desalination and like water purification plants in developing countries, because clean water accounts for, well, I should say unclean water accounts for an unfathomable number of infant mortality and of just deaths globally every year. Another company is working to I think it's like an AI biotech company, basically, that's using, it's like layering AI in radiology to spot early signs of lesions and polyps in, like pancreas and liver and things like that. And so anyway, knowing that there are companies out there that are doing really cool things, trying to save lives, grow, sustainable businesses and promote human flourishing, I want to invest there. That's where I want to pour my capital. And knowing that that's an option was incredibly eye-opening for me. It was just something I never really considered before.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that explains a lot about the why you chose your market and how important your approach is for the market. So I think the next thing we'll talk about for this show is your business, your financial advisory business.
Yeah.
How do you use tech to improve the business? How do you use tech to make things easier for you?
Okay, you had a really interesting episode recently on AI and GDPR, and then on kind of self-hosting a private AI within your
Yeah.
business. One thing I don't think you mentioned this in the show because it seemed like you were talking mainly to very large business owners. 100,000 employee businesses kind of self-hosting their own AI model or their language model in order to contain their data, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite tools to use is actually a tool called Recurse Chat. Have you heard of it?
What do you say?
It's called Recurse Chat.
Recurse? No, 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 no.
So it's a private. Well, I should say it's I think it's a Mac only app, but it's a private LLM. So it downloads a local copy of. You can pick your language model of choice that can be privately downloaded. So this one used Llama. I think Llama 3.1 or 2 was out when I was last using it.
Mm-hmm.
There's I don't know 20 to choose from based on what you're trying to do. So you can pick a model that's better at coding, a model that's better at language and writing, a model that's better at whatever. So but you can download a local version of the model, and then it's a chat interface. So you can upload files, you can create custom GPTs, you can talk to it like you would talk to any other online chatbot like Claude or ChatGPT, all without the data ever even leaving your laptop or your computer, because it I was curious. I was really skeptical of this. So a friend of mine who showed me this, he said, well, here, download this radio silence app so you can actually just block the internet connection from this app entirely and then see if it works. Well, sure enough, Peter, it did. It did what it said it was going to do. And it was really, really cool. So it took a while to kind of get the learning curve of it because it's nowhere near as sophisticated or obviously as developed as, these other major language models like Chat
Yeah.
or Claude. But for what I was trying to do, it did a really good job of taking the data. It checked the box of, hey, if I need a really secure AI platform to chat with or to do some data analysis, this is a really good one. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, I use software. Everything I do is in software. So I mean, my favorite budgeting software is actually called You Need a Budget. But it's a cloud-based web app, and you link your accounts, and it's a fantastic software. I highly, highly recommend it. A bit of a learning curve, no doubt, but their training materials are phenomenal. And their support is really, really good too. In my business, I everything that we do is software based, from tax planning to investment management to cash flow modeling. And so what I struggle with, honestly, is that there's so much compliance in the space where things have to be secure, they have to be disclaimed. You have to say like, well, this is a model, or hey, this is a projection, or past performance doesn't indicate future results or guarantee. You have to codify so much that it really strips, I think, a lot of the developmental energy and the innovative energy from the software development. And so, unfortunately, I feel like most of the software that we use is at least 10 years behind the technology curve. Maybe 10 is a bit aggressive, maybe 5 years, because I think 5 years ago, even pre-AI, I think these platforms probably would have been pretty competitive. But especially now in the in the ever evolving landscape with AI integrations and such, the software is just getting more and more out of date. But that being said, I love layering in additional tools and resources. We kind of talked about this a little bit before the show of like, mind if I talk about this, like using chat as like a thinking partner?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite things to do whenever I'm considering, for all kinds of things, but I love using chat as a thinking partner in kind of the brainstorming process. So if I, get off a call with a client, there's a specific situation that we're trying to work on, or even just like, I was doing this the other day where I was actually just reviewing a client's information, and I just want to make sure that I wasn't missing any blind spots, right, in the planning process. So I went to chat and I gave a very generic, scenario with there's no PII, there was no data, the numbers were not even accurate. But just for the sake of having a thinking partner, I just explain kind of what I was trying to do. And I was like, hey, you're a CPA, you're a tax expert, you're a business expert, you're a financial planner. Help me think through. And I love asking questions, or I love for asking it to ask me questions instead of just coming to AI with the question. I love to work with it and say like, hey, ask me more about, what you need to get a better understanding of this, or what are things that you would consider, what are questions that you would consider, to help build out the scenario. So it's a super, super powerful tool, super fun to use. And then I use Notion for all of my notes, all of my personal note and data management. And Chat is phenomenal at writing in Markdown. So everything I do, I can like, hey, just, can you put this in a little something for Markdown for me? And I can just paste it right into Notion with pre-formatting and everything. So it's it's such a helpful tool for thinking and for, brainstorming and turning ideas into something that I could really present to a client, or even having, talking points for a meeting or all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so I think you mentioned something compliance, the different compliance requirements
Yeah.
for anything concerning finance and documentation. So, are there any tech solutions, any tech tools that help with handling those that compliance aspects of it?
Well, so when I say compliance, I mean, what I mean is there are things I can and can't say. There are things, and generally it's just, there's so much bad information out there. There's so many people trying to do things the wrong way that compliance usually has to come in and make sure that those people, don't get away with it, so to speak. So I don't want to make it sound onerous, but uh, in terms of compliance management, of just making sure that I have good records, documentation, notes, controls in place, policies documented. I do have a program I use called Smart RIA, which I'm an RIA, which just stands for Registered Investment Advisor. And so I'm registered with the state of Georgia. Smart RIA is a cool tool. It's kind of just like a living checklist that, based on the size of my firm, how many states I'm registered in, because right now I have to register in each state individually. Once you pass kind of the de minimis requirements, you can register with the SEC on the national level, and then you can operate with clients in any state. But right now, if I got, for instance, and I take about one client a month, so I'm booked out right now until next month. But if, for instance, I got an influx of customers from, I don't know, another state, not my own, I would have to go and register in that state. So this living checklist basically lets me, put in, hey, here's my firm and here's the size and here's my registration status. And then it just helps me to stay on top of, okay, make sure every quarter you're checking, client agreements against your billing, make sure that you're keeping, all your emails archived, check every month to make sure your books are tidy, and save down a copy of your financial statements, just stuff like that. So that when an auditor knocks on my door, I'll be ready to go and have a really neat and tidy, organized system.
Okay, so I think that take of AI was really interesting. But I've noticed one thing, because there's something to say that with the popularity of AI, with everybody using AI, it's almost like intelligence has become democratized. Everybody has access to intelligence. So, looking forward, how do you see financial advisory services, your financial advisory business changing, especially since there's AI everywhere? How everybody has access to AI that can process their things for them. How do you see it changing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to change. And I'm actually excited about the changes. I think a lot of people are scared because for a lot of, so the continuum of advice. Okay. Let me give a brief history of financial advising. If you go back, 60, 70 years into like the 1950s, 60s, 70s, most financial planning was just done in the form of life insurance. That was pretty much what they called, there really wasn't even financial planning. It was just, everybody needs life insurance. Here's a policy. And, anyway, so it was mainly life insurance annuity based. If you buy an annuity, you'll have income in retirement after you stop working. So work hard to save up your money, then buy this annuity and we'll pay you until you die or leave it to a spouse or whatever. That was that was the extent of it, back then. Fast forward into the like 70s, 80s, you had stockbrokers picking hot stocks and trying to sell them, where you would buy the stock, make a lot of money, and that would help boost your retirement nest egg. And then you'd live off of the interest or dividends, or buy an annuity or your life insurance, cash value or whatever. That was 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. By the 90s, 2000s, 90s and 2000s was when the internet, the tech boom started. The robo advisors started to come onto the scene in like the late 2010s, or the late 2000s into the early 2010s. That was where you could go online to a website and just start putting money in, and it's going to be invested in some broad market, low fee, well diversified portfolio, and you don't have to have an advisor anymore. So the advisors that were picking stocks consistently outperformed these robo advisors that were just buying the whole market. And people were all concerned that, oh no, this is going to just like destroy the industry. And well, it hasn't, because it turns out personal finance is way more personal than it is finance. Keep going, fast forward into the 2010s and 20s, financial advising or advising is now its own sort of like sub industry of the industry, where like I mentioned in my take on AI, how it's not going to incorporate your estate planning or your beneficiary designations into the conversation yet. I think eventually it will hopefully get to that point. And it should, right? Because if you're going to AI and you're really looking for good advice, I hope you get it. I hope you are able to get that advice. There will come a point in the complexity of your life and your desire to have someone else do the work for you that you'd want to work with an advisor anyway. And I don't think that AI will ever get to that point, just fundamentally, but I'll get there in a second. So anyway, financial advising has kind of come onto the scene, where the comprehensive financial plan is now kind of a buzzword in the industry, and it focuses on the 5 core areas of someone's life. I put people through what I call the RIGHT framework, which is retirement planning, investments, insurance, taxes, and estates. That's RIITE for a nice fun acronym. But the RIGHT framework is just the 5 core pillars everyone's life has. They all need to be addressed in a good financial plan. That's what the CFP curriculum is all about. So if you're working with someone who is a CFP professional, a certified financial planner, that's what we do. That's the whole program, right? Is like making sure those 5 key areas of your life are taken care of. I like to add a 6th one, which is cash flow, because I think every good financial plan needs to start there. It's not really its own thing, but anyway, my point being, AI will, I think, revolutionize the advice giving space, because like I said earlier, as advisors, we're expected to be experts on 80,000 things, and there's just no way we can ever do that. I look forward to being able to work with AI to deliver really, really great advice and strategies to a client. That's not what I think makes me different. My strategies, my advice, my approach, that's not what makes me worth my fee. What makes me worth my fee is that I'm actually doing work for my clients, right? AI may be able to design a beautiful yard for a landscaper. Someone's still going to have to pick up the shovel, right? AI may be able to design a beautiful menu for your restaurant, but someone still has to chop the food and put it in the pan. So like, AI may be able to make you a beautiful financial plan. That's only the first step. Someone has to come in and implement it, and then monitor it and help hold you accountable and help answer your questions along the way. And I think AI will be able to do a lot of that, but the actual implementation and the work of putting that plan into practice, my hope is that AI will simplify the job of the advisor so that we can dramatically reduce our fees and serve a lot more people at scale. Because there are millions and millions and millions of people that desperately need good financial advice, good financial planning, but can't afford it. Because for the decades now, the industry has set these account minimums at $500,000 or $250,000 or $1 million of investable assets. That's just so that when they charge your 1%, their 1% fee, they're making enough money for the time they're putting into you to make it worth their while. Well, what if there was no minimum? And by the way, I don't have one. Now I have a minimum fee I charge, but it's not based on assets. But what if I could drop my fee, save a bunch of time, and deliver a phenomenal, plan to you and help implement that plan for a fraction of what it currently costs me in time and effort? That's super exciting to me. And that's where I see AI coming in and really revolutionizing the industry.
Amazing. I love that take. So now for other financial advisors who are building their own financial advisory practices, what kind of technology would you advise them to use if they want to build a practice that aligns with their values, like you're doing?
For other advisors that want to build a values aligned
Yes,
practice,
yes, yes.
give me a call. I don't know. It depends on where they are and where they want to start. I think, you know, you have to figure out what values are most important to you, and they're not the same for everyone, and that's okay. And even if you're a Christian or someone who holds tightly to, you know, Christian faith, you may still come away with a very different value set of what's most important to you in building your business than I have, and that's fine. I think there's a lot of room for really, really good professionals and really good practices offering a variety of services centered around different things. There's a lot of niching going on in the financial planning space too right now, of like, oh, I'm a student loan expert, so you know, if you have student loans, I'm your guy. Or I'm a special needs expert, so if you have kids with special needs, I'm your guy. Those are very different planning needs, believe it or not. There's a ton of nuance between student loans and special needs. Like, there's special needs trust. There's like, how do you care for a child after, you know, you pass away? Like, that they still need money, but you don't want to disqualify them from maybe other like government grants or like programs. So like, anyway, there's like all this nuance and complexity in handling that. Same with student loans, because the government keeps changing the rules. So within that, I'd say there's a lot of space for advisors to pick an area that really matters to them. Like, I mean, gosh, adoption, for crying out loud, is a really financially complicated situation. Well, maybe you've adopted kids and that's something you're passionate about. You want to help families going through adoption from a financial planning perspective. Great. Like, there's room in the industry for you to pick a value like that means a lot to you, and then kind of align your practice to it. And, you know, I think based on the other things we talked about on the show already, of like, you know, values-based investing and, you know, perspective of stewardship first, I think there's plenty, you know, for someone to kind of jump off of. But yeah, I love meeting new people. I love meeting other advisors. So I'd say, yeah, just give me a call. Let's talk. We'll have virtual coffee.
So for those advisors who want to give you the call or have virtual coffee with you, or maybe any listener that has heard about you and they want to connect with you, they enjoy your perspective and maybe they want to continue this conversation with you, what's the best way for them to reach you? And are there also any resources that you would recommend too?
Yeah, well, Peter, I've got a couple free gifts for your listeners, actually. And if they go to openhandedwealth.com/freebies, FREEBIES, just openhandedwealth.com/freebies. They'll find them there. But I've got a cash flow plan for someone that's never made a budget before, doesn't know where to start. Someone that is interested in biblically based investing but really wants more information, they can go there as well. And then if somebody owns a business and they feel like they're getting crushed on taxes, I've got a really helpful resource to save on taxes as well. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on any of the social platforms. But everything I do goes right through my website. So openhandedwealth.com, you can find everything you need to know about me there, and schedule that free virtual coffee with me. So, and I'll tell you this too. I'm currently still building my practice and building my book. So I am taking new clients right now. For now, I mean, there will come a point when I'm going to have to, you know, close off and just serve the clients that I have. But right now I am still taking clients. So if anybody wants to talk more, I'd love to meet them.
Amazing. So openhandedworld.com/freebies, that'll be in the show notes. That'll be at the bottom of the screen for those watching on video. So thank you so much, Nick, for coming on Tech Your Business today.
Well, Peter, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you're doing with the show. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And for the listeners, you've heard a lot. For those who are financial advisors, you've heard what you can use. You've gotten a couple of ideas. And for those who are business owners, you've gotten a lot of advice on managing your finances. So if you know anyone else this would help, share it to them. And till next week when we're back with a brand new episode, don't forget to keep taking your business. Bye for now.